In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the power steering lines on your Toyota Tundra. Remove the 3 bolts in the rear of the skid plate. There's one here, there should be one here, and one more here. We only have this one. Same thing in the front, there should be another 3. 2 of ours are broke, and we only have 1. Remove this one. There's little hooks on the back of the skid plate that'll hold it up. Tilt up, push up, and then pull back and remove the skid plate. Using a 17mm wrench, we're going to remove the 2 fittings off of the rack. Before you start removing these, make sure you have a collection bucket under, because they will start leaking fluid. Pull that line out of the rack and out of your way. Since my line broke off and I have a straight shot, I'm going to be using a socket. Finish taking out the fitting. Remove the 12mm bolt on the back of this bracket. Using a 12mm socket, remove the bolt for the bracket going to the frame. Remove that bolt. We're going to remove the last 2 12mm bracket bolts. That one. And the one that holds on these 2 brackets right here. And that one as well. We're going to pull this line set down and out of the way. Now we're going to work with the line set behind it, and we're going to remove the soft lines off the cooler. Using a pair of pliers, we're going to pinch the clamp on the hose and slide it back. There's one right under it. We're going to do the same thing on that one. And we're going to pull the lines off the cooler. Before you do this, make sure you have a collection bucket. It may drop some fluid. Remove the 10mm bolt. Pull this line forward, and then take the 2 10mm bolts off on the clamps. Loosen those up. We're going to take our air box, pull it off, flip it over to the side. I'm going to use a marker and mark this vacuum line in its position, so when we go to put it back, we know which one goes to where. Squeeze this little clamp and pull it back, and pull the vacuum hose off. Do the same thing on the other one. That clamp's pretty weak, so I just pinched it and then pulled it off. I'm going to use a 17mm wrench to remove this air sensor. Before you fully take this off, make sure you have a drain bucket underneath. It will leak a bit of fluid. We're going to take this off and move it to the new assembly. Going to install the sensor into the new assembly right now, and then once it's in the car and this is held down, we'll torque it. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to take out the union bolt on this power steering line. remove it. I'm going to slide this line down and out of the way. Using a pair of pliers, squeeze the hose clamp on the hose going to the reservoir. Slide that back and slide the hose off of the reservoir. Just like that. Then we're going to be ready to take our line set out. I'm going to pull these front lines down. And then I'm going to push them back just a little bit and slide our brackets so they'll slide out easily. Like that. Since we're not reusing these lines, I'm going to bend them before they come out. The line that goes up to the top, we're going to bend towards the front of the vehicle. It's going to allow us to push it back a little bit easier. I'm going to put these two lines up and over the sway bar and then start pulling back on the lines. Keep going back and forth until you can remove the whole line assembly. Before we install our line set, we're going to remove the hose that goes from the cooler to the reservoir. To do that, we're just going to bend these brackets back a little bit to be able to release them. And we're going to take them off the line set. And we're going to slide our line set into the car. Remove one of the hose clamps to the cooler from the old assembly and install it on the new one. You're going to want to push it back a little bit so we're able to install this line onto the cooler. Push the line up and onto the bottom cooler line. Install the clamp. Before installing your line, make sure you install an O-ring onto the end of this. We're going to install our lines into the rack. Make sure that the mating surface is clean. And then get the fittings started. Snug the fitting up. And do the same thing to the other one. We're going to install the bolt for this rack bracket. If you need a little bit of extra wiggle room, you can always loosen those 10mm bolts on top. And we're going to snug down the bracket bolts. We're going to install the bolt for this bracket on the frame. We're going to install that line that we took out. You're going to want to feed it next to the radiator and push it through to the front. And then we're going to put the back of the rubber hose under the other reservoir hose. Again, I grabbed a clip off of the old line set to install onto the new one. And then we're going to install this line and clip onto the reservoir. Push it all the way on, and then pull the clip up into place. Grab your union bolt, and we're going to slide one copper washer on, and we're going to put it through the union connection. Put the other copper washer on the bottom of the bolt once it's installed into the union fitting. And then we're going to start that bolt into the power steering pump. Torque the union bolt to 34 foot-pounds. Torque the air valve to 9 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, do the best you can. Install the vacuum line onto the little suction valve. Make sure the clamp is seated, and do the same thing on the other one. We're going to put the air box back in. Then tighten down both of the clamps. Install the bolt for this line bracket. And snug it down. Move one more clamp over from the old assembly to the new one. Install the line onto the cooler. And then pull the clamp into place. And we're going to put the lines back into the bushing. Just like that. We're going to grab our clamps, open them up, put them around the bushings. And squeeze them back down. Install the bolt through the bracket into the frame. Open the bracket, put it back around. Make sure you put the new bracket in first and put this other line bracket on top of it. And put the bolt in. Put the rubber back on this line. We're going to toss our clamp over. Using your fingers or a set of pliers, bend this bracket back into place. Squeeze it together and lock that tab down. Install the skid plate. There's two hooks that'll hook into this front cross beam. There should be 6 bolts holding this on, 3 in the front, and then 3 in the rear. We only have 2 bolts. The other 3 in the back should be in this hole here, 1 in here, and then the 3rd in here. Open up the power steering reservoir, and we're going to add some fluid. Fill your reservoir to the max line, leave the cap off, and then we're going to turn the wheels back and forth and start to bleed the system. Once you're done bleeding the system, make sure that the fill line is at the max. Top off the reservoir, and then put the cap back on. And you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.